So we give it a few more minutes. Welcome, everybody. Very excited about tonight. We have a panel of experts on fatherhood for gay men through surrogacy. Welcome if you're just arriving. We'll get started momentarily. So tonight's program will be recorded and will be available for on-demand access after the event in case you have to leave early. And we encourage you to stick around for the Q&A, participate as much as you would like. So yes, we're using a Zoom webinar, and Zoom webinar, you do not see the guests. So we had a question about that come in. So. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to Becoming a Dad, Fatherhood for Gay Men Through Surrogacy. I'm Charlie Connor, the president of the board of directors of Out Professionals, and I'm very pleased to begin the evening by introducing Dr. John Norian. As the evening unfolds, Dr. Norian will introduce the other members of our expert panel. Dr. John Norian is a fertility specialist who's double board certified in both reproductive endocrinology and infertility, and in obstetrics and gynecology. Dr. Norian received his undergraduate degree from the University of California, Berkeley, and his medical degree from the Royal College of Surgeons in London, He completed his residency at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York and a fellowship at the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. Dr. Norian has authored more than 25 original peer-reviewed journal articles and book chapters focusing on reproductive biology and infertility, presenting abstracts at conferences all around the world. Dr. Norian practices at HRC Fertility in Pasadena, California, helping patients nationwide and around the world achieve their dreams of parenthood. Dr. Norian is a lifelong supporter of the LGBTQ community, and in fact, he played a critical role in the successful launch of Out Professionals in Los Angeles last January, right before COVID arrived. So with some of the highest success rates in the field, Dr. Norian has helped create hundreds of LGBTQ families. Dr. Norian?
Charlie, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it. It's great to be with Out Professionals again tonight. I hope that wherever people are listening, that they've got good weather, and I'm excited to spend the next 45 minutes or so extended for questions and answers, just talking fertility and family building. So without further ado, let me share my screen, and then we can get started. Let me know if we have any technical difficulties. Hopefully we're okay. There we go. Give me one moment. Perfect. All right. So can people hear? Can you see everything, Charlie? Does that seem to be working?
Yes, looking good.
All right. Well, very great. So just a little bit about me. You heard a little bio from Charlie. I'm originally from LA. I have a lot of family in the East Coast though. So growing up, we were always going back and forth to New Jersey every so often. Locally, I'm involved as a clinical professor at 2 medical schools, and I'm very much involved nationally in some of the main IVF societies. And in one of my roles, I very much have been an advocate for LGBTQ people in making sure that their success rates are tabulated correctly nationally. So there's a lot of the behind the scene professional stuff that we all do. But tonight is about you. It's about family building, and just to start, I always like to touch on what can we do now to really help my sperm. So when we talk about that, we talk about nutrition, we talk about lifestyle, we talk about evidence-based studies that sort of demonstrate things that we can do. Number one, I recommend that all people with male parts to do their best to take a fertility-focused multivitamin. So what that is basically a vitamin that has more antioxidants. So things like zinc, selenium, vitamin C. Occasionally, I'll recommend guys to be taking even more antioxidants like CoQ10, L-carnitine, things like that. The other big thing is to eat a whole food diet, eat real food, try to avoid processed sugars. I love tortillas, but tortillas can be bad news as far as just simple carbohydrates. So really eat more of a good balanced diet. And then the other thing is just get information. And when we talk about that, the initial evaluation, what should guys do before sort of thinking about their fertility? Knowledge is power. So when I say that, I say, it's a great idea for people to get a sperm analysis, get a semen analysis. A semen analysis, believe it or not, is a highly complex test. We need a certified lab specialist to evaluate them. It looks at the concentration, the movement, or the motility, how rapidly the sperm are swimming, and then also the shape of the sperm, or we call it the morphology, the strict Kruger morphology. Other things people can do if you struggle with being excess weight, being very heavy set, or believe it or not, if men and women are too thin, their eggs and sperm may not be as great. So again, things to talk about with your doctor. Getting a better idea where you're at in the beginning is always key. Occasionally, just oxidative stress. We can do advanced testing looking at that. Men, believe it or not, even though we don't think so, can be a cause for miscarriage if the sperm is highly fragmented. Another thing I like to do early on is to do a genetic carrier screening. So what the heck is that? So what a carrier screen is where we can do a simple blood test. You can even do a cheek swab, and we can screen a person for over 300 inherited silent genetic mutations. So those are things like cystic fibrosis, sickle cell disease, the BRCA breast cancer gene mutation. There's different modes of inheritance. You see, types of mutations. Many times they're the silent mutations, but there's also other forms of inheritance. Part of the reason is remember, guys, that we're humans. Humans carry genetic disease. And we just want to know about it because if you test positive for one of these, we want to make darn sure that the egg donor also has screened negative for this. So again, before pregnancy, ideal time to do a quick genetic test. All right, so a big part of family building, biological family building, is going to involve a potential egg donor. And this is where you want to work with a clinic, an agency that's really sort of dialed in. Because when we select a donor, we want a donor to ideally be in her 20s, because peak fertility for people with female parts tends to be in this age range. As women get older, maybe your sister, your cousin, it gets more difficult to conceive for women. And this happens around the ages of 33, 34, 35. So ideally, a woman's in that age range. We want her to be healthy. We want her family history to be basically healthy. Now, when I say that meaning that, it may be okay if their grandparents had, let's say, a little bit of blood pressure, a little bit of diabetes. But let's say your own family history or your husband's family history is like, oh my God, my dad, my uncle, everyone had heart attacks at a young age. Then we want to be that bit more particular with the egg donor to make sure that she doesn't have a strong family history, let's say, of cardiac disease. So she's healthy, her family history basically healthy. And of course, we don't want her to carry rare inherited genetic diseases that you may also carry. Now, if she carries, a rare disease, honestly, she's probably a perfectly good donor, so long as you don't carry the same one. And then the other is very personal. So hair color, eye color, height, weight. You see pictures of the donors. Oftentimes they may submit a video. Believe it or not, you may even be able to meet the donor like for a video call or meet her at Starbucks or, somewhere where you just have a quick conversation. And honestly, the donors, they want nothing to do with parenting or anything like that. But sometimes it's fun for the future dads to just quickly get to know the donor. And remember, most good agencies like, Agency for Surrogacy Donor Solutions, the donors themselves will write essays. They'll describe, are you more mathematical? Are you more artistic? What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite book? So, you end up getting information, which is really cool. Education level, we need totally more coffee or tea to talk about this, but I don't want to dwell on this, but really, we want her to have graduated high school, maybe a little bit of college, but a lot of this is the nature versus nurture. So I know that you guys are all future tiger dads. As far as education level, I won't, we just want good, healthy genes. But certain agencies do also cater to certain donors, depending on the future dad's wishes, of course. So when selecting a donor, remember it's a process. This is regulated by the federal government. This is regulated by the FDA. There's a full medical screening, medical clearance, genetic screening. We already touched on that. The donors themselves go through psychological screening, and then of course legal. So it's so great we have Rich from the International Fertility Law Group on the call, because he's going to really talk about that. But from a medical point of view, I do a full history, physical exam. We do a full panel of infectious disease screening that are regulated in a laboratory that's accredited by the FDA. And then a big part of selecting a donor is also selecting her based on how productive her ovaries are. Psychological screening, all donors meet with a trained psychological specialist, whether a therapist or a psychologist, and they get an official screening. Make sure they're not bonkers, make sure they're doing this for the right reasons. Okay, so how does this work? Actually, I want to just comment one more, I'm so sorry, on selecting a donor, medical screening. Sometimes I have a slide in here where we talk about how many eggs do we want. So my target number for a donor, when we evaluate her, we do this thing called a follicle count. And a follicle count is where we count these little black spots on the ovary. And we typically like that number to be over 15 to 18. We also do a blood test called an AMH level, anti-Müllerian hormone level, and we want to make sure that's at a good, strong level. And part of it is because we want to best ensure that we get a good number of healthy eggs. So especially if we have two dads. So I'm going to talk about that in just a second. All right, so how does IVF work? Once we select the donor, she's gone through her clearances, then we're good to go. We get your sperm transferred to our clinic here in Pasadena at HRC Fertility, and then we start the donor. We give her medications to help mature and grow the eggs, mature and grow those black spots I was just talking about. It typically takes about 9, 10, 11 days. She then has a light anesthetic where she's asleep. Her pain is controlled, but she's breathing on her own, and we retrieve the eggs. Then we thaw your sperm that's already been FDA cleared, and we inseminate. Typically on the top, you see this ICSI or microfertilization. We place a single sperm directly into the egg as a way to optimize fertilization. Another technique is also called co-incubation, where we put the egg around a droplet of sperm and we let the best sperm win. Okay, so now going from egg to embryo. Remember, not all the eggs result in a healthy, fully mature blastocyst or day 5, day 6 embryo. In general, about 75–80% of the eggs are mature. About 70 to 75% of them will fertilize normally. So you can see these round numbers at the bottom. Let's say we get 20 to 25 eggs, which is ideal. Of those, say 16 to 20 would be mature. And then of those, say 12 to 15 would fertilize normally. And of course, I've retrieved 30 eggs, more. I've retrieved less and had really good healthy outcomes. So again, if we have two dads, oftentimes we may or may not, remember life, everyone has different desires, use two sperm sources. So if we do that, we may split the mature eggs and then fertilize half of them with one future dad and then the other half with another future dad. And then everything's labeled, and we then let them grow, and then we would transfer the embryo accordingly. So then we let the embryos grow. You see, I'm going to show just a quick little video. I love videos. I'm a visual learner. You can see this is on day 2. Day 1 is 1 cell. Day 2, there's 2 or 4 cells. Imagine there's chariots of fire music. 8 cells on day 3. Then the embryo compacts. It becomes a glob. And then this is the exciting bit where it expands. This is crazy. This is what all of us did when we were either in the embryology lab or inside our mom's fallopian tube. But right there, you can see on this little static image, it's a 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, there's a little bed of cells, and that's the future fetus, or that's the future embryo or baby. The other part's the placenta portion. We may or may not do chromosome testing, where we do PGT, where we can biopsy the outside of the embryo, and we take 4, 5, 6 cells, 7 cells, and we make sure that it's chromosomally normal using very advanced laboratory reproductive genetics techniques. We work with an in-house laboratory at HRC called Next Genomics. It's a very robust, very reasonable platform. Oh my gosh, we put so much money into keeping our laboratory at the cutting edge. And we, of course, also are doing research studies looking at all these techniques and optimizing things, yearly, if not monthly. Reasons to do PGT. We don't have to do PGT if we're working with an egg donor, because oftentimes they're young and healthy, but it sure does give us a lot more information. It makes doctors like me feel that bit more comfortable transferring a single embryo and having an amazing pregnancy rate. Our pregnancy rates are that bit higher when we do the chromosome testing. We also learn the sex of the embryo. If you want to have a boy first, girl first, that's how people figure it out. And then again, we just get more information. So something to consider, definitely something to talk about with your physician. Surrogates also love PGT because the risk of miscarriage is that bit lower, and we just get more information about the embryo. Okay, so let's talk surrogates. So I'm going to talk about them more from a medical point of view. Remember, again, they're screened very robustly. They go through medical clearance, psychological clearance, legal clearance. From a medical perspective, excuse me, we want her to have had an easy obstetrical history. We want her prior deliveries to be easy. For me, I'm a little bit particular. I don't like surrogates having more than 2 prior C-sections. Just because it makes for a more difficult transfer, it may be more complicated for her at delivery. Ideally, they're all vaginal deliveries and we're good. But I also very much don't want our surrogates to be obese. I want their BMIs to be less than 30, and we want them to be healthy. We do a full panel of labs. I screen them for their hemoglobin A1C, for their sugar levels, their cholesterol panel, their thyroid, their vitamin D. So we just want these surrogates to be as healthy as possible. Honestly, surrogates are amazing, kind women. They love being moms, and they want to help other people be parents. So it's really cool. You get to know the surrogates, you see them beforehand, and I'll let Lauri and Kathryn speak about this just a little bit more. Of course, they don't smoke cigarettes. We screen them for all sorts of stuff. Evaluation, I very much hone in on their uterus, the womb. I want to make sure there's no polyps, no fibroids, things that may disrupt the embryo from implanting. Again, we do a full infectious disease screening panel. And then, like I mentioned, they meet with a licensed psychological clearance, a licensed therapist, psychologist, and they really get into the nitty-gritty about who do you live with, why are you doing this, and they many times will go through a battery of tests, even psychologically. And then, of course, legal. Legal, it protects them, it protects your future child, it protects you. And you want to make sure you're working with a good agency and in a good state that's appropriate. We also do ultrasounds. Of course, we don't want the surrogate to have big fibroids or polyps or endometriosis, things that may decrease our pregnancy rates. Okay, so now we've created this beautiful embryo with your sperm, and we've selected our surrogate. We've made sure her uterus looks perfect. Then we talk about transferring the embryo, and we do it in a very particular day when the embryo, the lining is perfectly sticky. So this is a little video of someone like myself transferring an embryo. Again, Chariots of Fire music. No, actually, this is spa music, guys. This is very calm, relaxing music. So you can see someone like me bringing in the little embryo guide with the embryo. Here's the sticky lining, beautiful uterus. Back up just a little. And then there, you can see that little fluid droplet, that little white spot. That's the little white spot or fluid droplet with the embryo. Then we talk to the embryo. We tell it to behave, to stick, to turn in your homework, be a good kid. No, that's what an embryo transfer is. It's a magical moment. Many times also we'll do video calls. Tomorrow we're doing a video call with 2 dads who are in the East Coast, which is really exciting. We coordinate those little technical details. And it's just great. It's a really neat day. So success rates. So why myself, Dr. Norian, why HRC, why working with a good agency? Bottom line is success rates. It's hyper involved care. Our success rates, whether we transfer 1 versus 2 embryos, believe it or not, are not that much different. When we use PGT, our implantation rates, pregnancy rates are that bit higher. I feel so blessed to work with a wonderful laboratory that gives us high quality embryos. And I have to be careful because, if we transfer too many, we have too high an incidence of twins. Now, I do tell people it's 1 or 2 embryos, and we can talk about this, I think, in the Q&A. That would be a perfect time. Twins are just a higher risk pregnancy, more problems with early delivery, and then all the lifelong diseases associated with that. That's really the big thing with twins. Honestly, the surrogates themselves are wonderful people. But today's all about pregnancy. It's about live birth. These are some of the surrogates and future dads that we've worked with. Graduation day is an exciting day in our office. And then here, these are just some pictures of my team. We have a wonderful team. I have two offices. One's in Pasadena, and the other is in a bedroom community, Rancho Cucamonga, here in Southern California. It's close to many donors and surrogates. Of course, I'm double board certified. We have a wonderful embryology lab. HRC Fertility has been around for decades. We're here in Southern California, one of the oldest clinics. And we take what we do very seriously and also very compassionately. Every patient has a dedicated nurse, a dedicated doctor. We have our own individual financial coordinators, which are there to guide you through the process. I also didn't mention, but we have, my partner and I have started partnering with an egg donation agency called Synergy Egg Donation. But many surrogacy agencies also may have egg donors. We also partner with other agencies. They're pre-screened, prior to getting started. We have many locations in Southern California, which is another way to sort of save on costs because all the monitoring and whatnot would be in-house. I also take a lot of pride in taking care of my patients who have HIV as a way to help add to your family and for your child not to carry the virus. Science matters, hashtag science matters. Don't tell our former president, but it's amazing what we can do in the lab. So this is just a little bit about me, my contact information. Feel free to screenshot that if you like. I try to do posts on social media that are more educational, but of course it's social media, so it's a little playful and whatnot. And that's that. So I hope that was helpful. I'm going to stop sharing the screen right now, and I want to introduce Lauri and Kathryn. So give me 1 second. And here we go. Up. Oh, here we go. Stop share. Perfect. All right. So there is Kathryn. Maybe you can wave. This is Kathryn Kaycoff with Agency for Surrogacy Solutions, and Lauri Brito. They're moving around on my screen right now. And they have a wonderful agency that has been in existence for a long period of time. They take what they do very seriously. I've worked with them myself on multiple occasions, and they took care of a dear friend of mine as well. And I get to see the offspring when we hang out. His name's Tommy, and he's great. And the dad's from Boston, and the former quarterback. What can you do? But anyways, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Kathryn and Lauri.
Thank you, Dr. Norian, and we're really excited to be here. And as I think everybody here, a lot of our clients are same-sex couples or part of the gay community, and we've had that as one of our focuses since when we started 17 years ago. And do you want to put our slides up, or are we going to do that?
Yeah, of course. I just wanted you to chat.
I just wanted to add to that, both the thing that makes our agency special is that Kathryn and I both created our own families with the help of surrogates and egg donors. So prior to that, we were both television producers, and we both come from the East Coast, New York and New Jersey, transplanted out here right now in California, but the East Coast is still home, I guess. But anyway, it's near and dear to our hearts to help create families this way.
That is great. Okay, let me go here.
And that's not us.
Coming up right now. Give me technical. There we go. And wait for it. Perfect.
Still not us.
Oh, there you go. I was supposed to land on that. I'm sorry, guys. There we go.
There we go. And as Lauri said, we're both parents through surrogacy and egg donation. I have identical twins that are 17. And Lauri, I don't know how many you
I
have.
have a slew of kids. I have a 21-year-old who is graduating U of Penn this year in May, and who's genetically mine, and I carried her. Then I have a 16-year-old daughter who's egg donor, 14-year-old son and surrogate, 14-year-old son, same egg donor, same surrogate. And then I have an 8-year-old son, different egg donor, different surrogate.
Anyway,
Exactly.
she just has a slew. Okay. So we're here. We are trying to make this into 6 very simple steps to become a parent through surrogacy and egg donation. And I must be honest with you, it's not that simple. But when you have a good agency that can hold your hand through every step of the way, it makes it feel simple. So we're going to just kind of break it down into very broad sweeps now. All right, John?
Step 1, basically, choose an agency. That's really step 1. Choose an agency. You want to make sure that they have experience. You want to make sure that they have a reputation, and that reputation is good. And you want to make sure that they're available to you. That's really critical. We hear so often that intended parents will wind up signing with agencies and then find out that they can't contact them. They don't respond. So these are 3 very important things.
And the way that you can find those things out are through calling, setting up appointments with them, looking on the internet, asking other intended parents, doctors, lawyers. There's a lot of ways you can get information. It can feel really overwhelming by just looking at the internet. Okay, sorry. You can go to the next one. Step 2. So now you've picked your agency. Sometimes you might have picked your doctor first. It doesn't have to be in this particular order, but in this scenario, next you're going to select an egg donor. Now, for us, we do have an in-house egg donor agency. We have a lot of very beautiful, talented, educated egg donors, but it might feel overwhelming. So we do have matching specialists that you can talk with that can help narrow it down for you, help prioritize. As Dr. Norian said, there are going to be genetic issues in everybody's family, but which ones are going to be critical to you is important. And while the doctor can help you, we can also help you a bit with that. Then once you have an egg donor, you're going to cycle with her, and you're going to want to match with a surrogate. Of course, you're going to want to match with a surrogate as soon as you have those embryos waiting for you at the clinic. But the truth is, most surrogacy agencies, there is a 12-month or more wait list at a lot of the reputable large size agencies. We work really hard to keep our wait time down. Right now, due to COVID, it's 5 to 8 months. It is starting to get longer. People are getting excited. People are vaccinated. People are feeling more comfortable about moving forward. So all those people that were on hold are jumping in. So if it's something, there's no pressure ever to start right away. But if it's something you're thinking of, sooner might be better than later. But if you're not in a hurry, you might be okay waiting 8 months to get a match. Okay.
So once you've signed with your surrogacy agency, egg donor agency, you've got your egg donor going, you're on your match list for your surrogate, you have now matched with your surrogate. Okay, a couple of months have gone by, you've matched, they've located a surrogate for you. She is going to go through a couple of steps, which basically John did talk about, but there will be medical clearance. So she will go through a medical evaluation, have her uterus evaluated, do blood work. Her partner will need to do blood work and pass that as well. She will go through a full psychological screening. And we also do a full background check on her, not just an online check. We have detectives who do a full background check, including looking into everything and interviewing her. They dig up all the stuff. After she's cleared medically, then we start contracts with which Rich can talk about a little more in depth. But basically, because we've established the contract points prior, financial points, hopefully it doesn't take that long to get through the contract stage. And then you fund your escrow and you're off to the next step.
Which is a simple step, which Dr. Norian talked about. She travels to the clinic. She's all medically prepared. Her uterus is ready to accept an embryo, and she goes for the embryo transfer. She might bring a partner with her. It usually is she'll come in a couple days before the transfer because most surrogates don't live up the street from the clinic. She'll go in, she'll stay at a hotel. She'll stay a day or so after the embryo transfer, take it easy, and then return home. And then we have about 9 days or so, and she goes back in and has a beta test, which will tell you whether she's pregnant or not.
There you go. Step 5, Kathryn was a little ahead, the beta test and pregnancy. And I got to tell you, even after doing this 17 years, it's still exciting when we get this news. Oftentimes the surrogate will do pregnancy tests, but we won't have her tell the intended parents until the actual beta, but it's always really exciting for us. She stays with the reproductive endocrinologist like Dr. Norian until she's about 10 weeks pregnant, and then she's released to her own OB. So now she will start seeing her own OB, sort of like a regular pregnancy, and that's when she will also switch to using her own health insurance. Up until this point, no health insurance, unfortunately. It's all basically cash out of pocket. But at this point, we've gotten health insurance in place and you're able to start using it.
And that doesn't mean that she doesn't have health insurance prior to this. It just means it's not covered. The fertility treatments are not covered by her health insurance. So the next step is, as she said, we're pregnant. And in many ways, there's a lot less to do. We keep in touch with your surrogate and we support her throughout the journey. We make sure she goes to her appointments, that she's eating well, that she feels that you're communicating with her. So if there's a need for us to step in and increase it or decrease it, sometimes people are overly excited and they text and they call every day, and that might be a little much for her. But we try and match you with people where you share a communication style. But she'll be going to appointments. We'll be paying her pregnancy allowance and payments from the escrow account that you would have set up. We will make sure that we'll keep track of your funds. They'll be distributed according to the contract. You'll be kept up with what's being spent. Every single thing that's part of the journey, we will be there for, and for her and for you, including talking to the hospital, making sure they understand that this is a surrogacy pregnancy, that your names will be going on the birth certificate, that it's not your baby, that she's not making medical decisions since when they're born, and then absolutely you will be there for the birth. She wants you to be there if you can handle being in the delivery room. Some people can't, but most of the time she would love for you to be there. She might want you to stand up by her head, but nonetheless, she wants you to be there. It's part of the experience for her and for you too. And after the birth, the baby stays in the hospital, usually 2 days, if everything, 1 to 2 days, and then you can take your baby home with you.
So basically, the question would be, why choose us? Why choose Agency for Surrogacy and Egg Donor Solutions? We basically say experience matters. We've been doing this 17 years. That's a long time. And we have not had any legal suits, which apparently is really, really critical. And most agencies have at some point. We're very passionate about what we do, and that really stems from the fact that, as I said earlier, we created our families this way. This really is a passion for us, not just a business. We also, and this is important, very important when you're looking at surrogacy, we do not hold your money. Your money goes into a bonded escrow company or trust account with an attorney. You do not want to work with an agency that holds your money because that's how fraud happens. So be really cautious of that. And then ask for recommendations, ask for referrals. We've got a worldwide reputation, a wonderful worldwide reputation, and we're proud of it. We're really proud of it. We've built something that we believe in, and that frankly, I wish was around when I was looking for a surrogate, because it was a rocky road back then, 17 years ago, and Kathryn even longer. So.
And as I said, since we started 17 years ago, our mission has always been to help anyone that wants to become a parent become one. Everyone has a right to be one. There shouldn't be all these, obviously we have to do something different here that costs more than just having a baby, but the traditional way, but we don't judge. We want to make it happen. And as Dr. Norian said, HIV positive, we're able to work with. And as to this point, we have yet to find somebody that we didn't feel we wanted to help. And our goal is always to help create loving families. And we don't discriminate against sexual preference, gender identification, race, religion, nationality. Our major goal here is for you to have a healthy baby. And our secondary goal is for you to have a good experience. And our 17 years of experience are what help makes that experience good. We know problems before they happen. We can troubleshoot. Experience really does matter. And I would say make sure that's part of your question when you're talking to an agency. How long have you been doing it? No one ever has 100% smooth journeys, but you want someone to be there and support you if it doesn't go right. You can't control everything, as we've just seen this past year. This was, nobody's in particular's fault, but there were repercussions that affected our industry and the people that were pregnant and wanted to get pregnant, and we were there for them 100% of the time. Is that it? Oh, wait. Oh, well. Sure, it wasn't very important.
Basically, the only last thing we want to add is that we're here. We would love to meet with you individually, and you could schedule a free Zoom chat with one of us, and we'd love to answer all of your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It had there it is, our contact. You're muted. You're muted.
All right, fun with Zoom. It's going to be so nice to stop Zoom eventually. That was wonderful, guys. Thanks so much for highlighting key issues and topics. I think now let's switch to legal, and let's switch to Richard Vaughn, or Rich Vaughn. He founded the International Fertility Law Group that has multiple offices throughout the world. Richard has done so much for America, the American Bar Association. He's headed up the various sections focused on reproductive health, LGBTQ rights. He's been honored as part of, when I was on the board of Family Equality, we honored Rich and for the work that he's done. I'm excited to hear him speak. I always learn a little bit when he does. And thank you, Richard, for being on the call today.
My pleasure, Dr. Norian. Thank you for having me. I'm kind of left with the job of quick cleanup because we've got to leave some time for Q&A. And my job in general is to make things easy for you guys. So I'm going to make the legal part easy for you. So just to wrap it up and kind of tell you where we've been and where we're going, you have an agency that helps you match appropriately with an egg donor that meets your criteria and a surrogate that's a good fit for you. You have a doctor who's going to ensure as best as possible you have medical success and you have that baby, but you need a lawyer to make sure that it's all legal. At the end of the day, you want to be the legal parents of any resulting child, so that's where the lawyers fit in. So as Kathryn, Lauri, and Dr. Norian have previously mentioned, there are several steps in this process leading up to when you would start the legal process. So medical clearance, psych clearance, and all the other things that the agency will do to make sure that the surrogate and or donor are cleared to proceed. That will be done before you start working with the lawyer. Now, with the legal process, you have several stages, and one is contracts. You will need a contract with your egg donor, and you'll need a contract with your surrogate. The contract is there to make sure that we've spelled out everybody's rights, all the risks, everybody's obligations, and of course the financial terms and conditions. And the contract has to be in place before the donor or surrogate can start their injectable medications to get ready for whatever procedures that they're going through. Look at that, I just skipped right over me. I'm right into the legal stuff. We'll get into me a little bit later. I think John did a good job of introducing me. But as far as the egg donor contract is concerned, you want it to be clear that, from the moment of egg retrieval, the eggs belong to you. Any embryos that are created belong to you, and you are the parents of any resulting child. And we also will address the issues of future contact with the egg donor. There may be an open arrangement, a semi-open arrangement, or a completely anonymous arrangement. So we will address the parameters of future contact based on the kind of arrangement you have with the donor. And of course, if there's ever a need for medical records in the future from the donor, let's say your child has a medical condition with a genetic component to it, your doctor at that time may need to see medical records from the donor. So we always make a provision or allow for a provision in the contract that says the donor will provide medical records if needed in the future. So again, that contract has to be in place before she can start her injectable medications and get ready for the egg retrieval. The same process applies to the surrogate. She'll go through all the screening and vetting that's done by the doctor, the psychologist, and the agency. And when she's ready for contracts, when you're ready for contracts, we'll draft that contract for you. Again, it outlines all the financial terms and conditions and everybody's rights, risks, and obligations. And from the surrogacy point of view, one of the main points of the contract is to make it clear that you are the intended parents, that she is not, that she will do whatever we need her to do, sign whatever we need her to sign, to make it clear that you are the legal parents. And we outline that in that intent in the contract. The contract itself, however, does not make you the legal parents. In surrogacy cases, we ultimately go to court. And you'll see on the slide here that we have a blue square there, the third one in for parental establishment. So that's actually our ultimate goal in the surrogacy case, is to go to court and get a court order that confirms that you are the legal parents. But before we do that, we have another step of the legal work, and that's called guardianship documentation. In this process, you are forming a family. You will be having children, maybe adding to your family, maybe having a child for the first time. It's important that you start thinking about who your guardians would be to care for your child or children in the event something happens to you during this process. We hope nothing happens, but we want you to be prepared. We've had over 30,000 cases since 1992, and it's happened a few times. So we want you to be thinking about that and preparing for and protecting your child. But we also will have the surrogate sign a document designating you as guardians of the baby during the pregnancy. And this is important because, as I mentioned, the contract with your surrogate does not make you the legal parents. We can't do that in a contract. So during the pregnancy, even though we have a contract, your surrogate is considered technically by law to be the mother because she's the pregnant person. So we have her designate you as a guardian during the pregnancy. So you have a healthcare power of attorney. So you have some standing with the OB to be involved in medical decisions, talk to the OB, view your surrogate's pregnancy records if you need to see them, and also be present for any of the healthcare visits, whether it is in person or remotely by Zoom, like today. So we cover that in the guardianship documents. And in this document, we actually have your surrogate list your backup guardian. So again, if something happens to you, your backup guardians are listed. They have the same authority that you would have had. Now, the next step in the process is going to court and getting a court order. This is something we start at about 14 weeks of pregnancy. We will gather information from everyone and then draft court documents for you to sign. We will submit them to the court on your behalf. 99 times out of 100, you do not need to appear in court. And if anyone needs to go, we'll go. But these court documents basically explain to the court that it is a fully agreed situation that we're presenting. We're not asking the court to decide on a winner and a loser, a right and a wrong. It's a fully agreed situation. So we present the court with an agreed court order that all parties have reviewed and approved. And the court order makes it clear that your surrogate is not a parent if she's married, her spouse is not a parent, that you are the only parents, and that your names will go on the birth certificate. Now, we typically get these court orders during the pregnancy, and this is called a pre-birth order. Not all states allow us into court during the pregnancy, and if that's the case, it's a post-birth order, but it's obtained shortly after the birth. In all situations, we will talk to the hospital during approximately the beginning of the third trimester, to let the hospital know there is a surrogacy birth coming up, that you are the parents, that we are the attorneys, and if they have questions, they know that they can call us. If they need any other documents, we can get those documents to them, so that when the birth does occur, everything runs very smoothly at the hospital because it's all been worked out ahead of time. And then once the birth occurs, the hospital will have some paperwork to complete for the birth certificate. And they typically attach the court order that we've obtained for you. They attach it to this birth certificate paperwork, and then they send it off to the state vital records office where the birth certificate is prepared. And if you are a domestic US client, then the birth certificate will be mailed to you several weeks later. If you're an international client coming to the US from another country, then we will help get the birth certificate expedited, so you should have it in 2 weeks or less, which would be important because you need the birth certificate to get a US passport for the baby so you can return home. So we will walk you through all of that. We'll be with you holding your hands from beginning to end and making sure that all of your legal questions are answered along the way. That's it. Thanks, John.
That was great, Richard. That's such a wonderful summary. Let me, oh, actually, wait 1 second. Sorry, guys. All right, so that was wonderful. Gosh, what a wonderful evening. And I wanted to also make sure to gosh, I'm so sorry. There we go. Resume. There we go. Perfect. To a big shout out to everyone. I'm looking forward to the Q&A right now. And a big shout out to Charlie Kennard, to the team at Out Professionals. I can't wait to see people in person here in LA, New York. I think it's a wonderful organization. I myself have gotten a lot of enrichment out of professional societies and things like that. And really happy to be here. So again, thank you for the invitation, and hopefully that was more educational. We of course would love to work with you and set up consultations and things like that, but I'm going to hand it over to Charlie right now and let him sort of lead our Q&A.
Thank you, Dr. Norian. So as we can see tonight from our experts, surrogacy is definitely a journey. And I thank them for translating the many steps into understandable and an understandable process. So we have a number of questions tonight. There's overall questions about the experience, as well as specific situations, some of which are very interesting. So we'll start with the overall questions. So first of all, to address the elephant in the room, we've been living in a pandemic, COVID, for over a year now. How has this affected the surrogacy experience and industry overall? And this is open to any of the speakers.
I'll take that one. Clearly, when COVID started, the pandemic started, it hit our industry pretty hard in terms of clinics shutting down, surrogacy sort of shutting down. However, of course, we still had surrogates who were pregnant for intended parents in the United States as well as around the world. Fortunately, because I guess Kathryn and I had some foresight, and we had Rich on our side as well, none of our intended parents got stranded. We were really blessed that they all made it to the births and eventually were able to take their children home, their babies home. However, business was awfully slow until I would say about November, December, and now it's like a baby boom. And I'm sure Dr. Norian would attest to this, but everybody wants to have a baby, which is really, it's awesome. That's all I can say is it's really wonderful because there's hope again. People are clearly feeling hope, with our new president, with the vaccines, with, everything that's been happening. So we're busy. And that's why we were saying, if you want to get started, at least on the surrogacy end, that's why the wait list is longer.
Yeah, that was a great, great topic. It was in the early days, we just didn't know what we were dealing with. So we really slowed things down. We started learning a lot more about the virus, how to treat it, and then of course the vaccine. One thing I wanted to maybe just touch on from a vaccine point of view, the two big vaccines are mRNA vaccines. They were developed with the gene editing sort of information. Wonderful professor out of UC Berkeley got the Nobel Prize for it, fast tracked. Science matters, guys. Oh my gosh. But especially these two vaccines, along with the J&J vaccine, is still a very safe vaccine. We're giving it even to people during pregnancy. We're encouraging people to get vaccinated beforehand. I actually helped set up a message board for board certified reproductive endocrinologists through SART. And there was a little chatter going on about, and I actually was the one who raised the question about, do you delay the vaccine right around embryo transfer? There was a little bit of a consensus, like plus or minus 3 or 4 days. But in general, remember, OBGYNs, fertility specialists, we give vaccines, right, during pregnancy. We give the flu vaccine. We give even like tetanus vaccine. There's certain ones we don't because they're live attenuated. But anyways, the vaccines, we recommend people to get vaccinated is sort of the take home point. We encourage surrogates to try to get vaccinated sooner than later. People don't want to get COVID during pregnancy. The vertical transmission from mom to baby is really quite low. The risk of congenital anomalies from mom, I said mom, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Surrogate, guys, from surrogate to baby is extremely, or super anti, extremely quite low. So, I think these new vaccines are, really helpful and really good. So there you go. Sorry if that was too much, but.
Great. So I just want to let everyone in the audience know we will get to all your questions. We don't have to cut off at any specific time. So please hang on. They keep on coming in. So that's fantastic. So we have a specific question about how does the vaccine affect matching IPs and surrogates? And then we'll move on to other questions.
So I'll take that one just because sometimes the questions end up coming to me when we're negotiating contracts. I think it's really important that you need to be matched and aligned with your surrogate on the issue of vaccinations, because if you want her to get one and she's anti-vaccination, you can't force it, and vice versa. So make sure that you have that discussion early on, especially where the surrogacy is concerned.
Great, thank you. So we have a question about the role of the LGBT patient advocate. Dr. Norian, you have a patient advocate. What is the role of that person and how does that help the process?
Yeah, so Andrew Barman, I've worked with him for years. He's a wonderful advocate. He sort of allows me to do what we do that bit better. Maybe I should let Andrew just sort of describe your role and talk about how you have helped the LGBTQ community, excuse me.
Sure. Hi guys, so I'm Andrew. I'm located out here in the Los Angeles area. I've worked with Dr. Norian as his LGBT patient advocate for a few years. So I travel with him and I help kind of be his person that can answer your question, most of your questions that you have, because he's a very hands-on doctor. He does almost everything himself, and he has an awesome nursing staff. But he's really hands-on and really in tune with your individual journeys. So while he's busy doctoring, I kind of help answer any questions people have before they start the process, or can help them refer to the right people that can answer questions. I also work with Charlie and Out Professionals out here in LA, where we just started doing networking events right before COVID hit. So that's kind of my role. I also help Dr. Norian we have a in-house egg donor agency with Dr. Norian there called Synergy Egg Donation. So yeah, that's what I.
Thanks, Andrew. So another question that we have that's coming up quite a lot in different ways, and I'll just kind of summarize it together. So what is the time frame for the surrogacy journey? What is the cost? And are there financing, prepayment, or longer term financing options?
All right, I guess I'll jump in here. So timeline is very personal. Some people do the egg donation journey first. Oops, am I muted? No. Some people do the egg donation journey first. Sometimes people and get on a waiting list for a surrogate so that you find your egg donor, you do the cycle, and then hopefully soon after the embryos are made, you get to the top of the waiting list. Excluding the waiting list, just once you're matched, we average 16 to 20 months is the average from when you're matched until there's you go home with a baby. But a lot of things can vary. How many tries does it take? Did you end up, we have people that don't get a lot of eggs and don't have a lot of good embryos after the genetic testing. They have to start over. They have one embryo. They use that. They start over with the egg donor cycle. So it's really hard to tell what your journey is going to look like. But with the egg donor, with the surrogacy, with the clinic, it really can vary. Again, certain egg donors cost more, certain clinics, you decide to do certain procedures. We estimate that it's probably between 145 and 185,000 for US domestic patients. And that's a big range. But again, there's so many. And if you want to reach out to us, we will send you a cost sheet. A cost sheet is not exactly how much everything costs, but an estimate. And the same thing like legal. Legal can cost different amounts for different places, different states, different services that you decide to select from each different place. Agencies, there's usually one service. We are going to help you have a baby. But lawyers and clinics have a lot more variation in their costs. I think I answered. Oh, financing. While we don't specifically offer financing, we do partner with organizations that will give you loans. They're not usually going to pay for the whole journey. And clinics, and Dr. Norian can speak to that, often have payment partners also. I don't know about legal. I haven't heard about that, Rich. No. Oh, you're muted.
You're muted, Rich.
Yeah, I haven't either. So
Yeah,
I don't know any financing. We do offer, I mean, what we do, you can pay as you go. So as you're ready for each particular service, you don't have to pay for everything up front. So,
and they're the smallest part also. I mean, their fee is much lower when you look at the agency, even though our agency fee isn't the bulk of your journey. There's surrogate, her insurance, the monitoring. There's so many things that come through the agency that it adds up. And the clinic is also a bigger bulk of the portion of the cost.
Yeah. And yeah, that was a good overview. One of the things with my practice in HRC fertility is, we very much focus on high level, high touch fertility care at a reasonable cost. So when we talk about other clinics, we don't want to be the most expensive clinic by any means, but we're also not the bottom of the barrel. Like that's because in order to do what we do, in order for you to have a dedicated nurse, like Andrew mentioned, I'm so hyper involved. I screen all my donors and surrogates myself. I don't have an NP or a PA that's doing all the work. I'm there because I want to do that follicle count. I want to see that triple line pattern on the uterus as best we can. So so that type of thing does take extra effort. We like you mentioned, we partner with 2 or 3 different outside financing groups, and they have different strengths and weaknesses.
And I think the same thing too with us. We could charge more. We don't. We want to try and keep this affordable and as manageable, but I really do believe, like with Dr. Norian, our quality of care is the highest in the industry. There might be comparable companies, but I think I can't think of any that offer better services, more compassionate services. But we're not the most expensive, and we don't want to be.
But we're also not the least.
No, we're right in the middle.
And the thing is,
we're very.
if you if you talk to friends and they say, oh, well, I went to this clinic, or that's always the thing, this clinic or this agency and blah, 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 and they were less expensive and less expensive. Sometimes you do get what you pay for, and it will take you longer. And in the long run, you end up paying more money. So
That's
One
great.
thing also that came up is why work with a group from Southern California?
good point.
And because we take care of a lot of people from New York. Manhattan is wonderful. I did my residency there. And it's a population center. It's a hub for LGBT activity. It's awesome. I love the West Village. But the reason is a lot of fertility. I would love other people's input.
I'll give you.
Really were open-minded to taking care of gay men and gay women from the early days. And also, I think the level of care is not a doctor of a day model. We have really hyper-involved care. And also, I think the laws are also that bit more tailored. So, but I'd love your guys'
I think too that we do more surrogacy. The clinics on the West Coast do way more surrogacies and egg donations than the East Coast. And the East Coast tend to treat it more like cattle call. You know, there are some great clinics on the East Coast in New York, but I have friends who have gone there for IVF for various treatments, and you don't know what doctor you're getting unless you're a celebrity. That's it.
Also,
So it's not the same compassionate care that you're going to get and experience, which is really valuable on the West Coast.
we're not trashing the East Coast. Lauri and I are both from there, but the statistics on the West, we can work anywhere. It doesn't matter. We work with clinics all over the country and surrogates all over the country. But in truth, in almost every top clinic we work with, statistics wise, are based here in California. There are a few scattered other places, and none of them are on the East Coast with the top statistics. And they do tend to upcharge for things that aren't charged here. They do in-house psych evaluations for $3,000. We get them done here with top professionals for $750. We look, and I'm speaking as an agency, we look for every way we can save you money and still keep the quality high. And we do work with East Coast clinics all the time, but without a doubt, I'd rather work with Dr. Norian any day. It's just, it's easier. That's all I can say. And the East Coast, I always say on the West Coast, we dot our I's and we cross our T's. On the East Coast, they dot them and they dot them and they put a hole in the paper and they cross the T. And sometimes there's just not a need for it. And if there is a need, we'll do that too.
Well, that's actually a great point. We have many viewers, participants from New York area. And recently, in the last year, I believe, the laws have changed. I know California has been very much at the forefront of this industry and developing all the different aspects to make, in a legal and in service sense. So, Richard, would you like to share about New York and what's changed?
Sure. So effective February 15th, 2021, compensated surrogacy was made legal in New York for the first time in over, I think it was 27, 28 years. So the new statute was passed. It's an update, a major overhaul in the parentage laws in the state of New York, touching not only on surrogacy, but egg donation, embryo donation, posthumous conception, etc. So it's a significant update. It does have a lot of significant requirements for surrogacy, some of which are much more expensive, are going to add cost for intended parents because just as one example, health insurance for the surrogate must be in place not only for the entire pregnancy, of course, but also for 12 months after birth, whereas that's not a requirement in any other state in the country. The idea is to support and protect the surrogate, which is great, but that does add a significant cost to the process. But it's still early days yet. The law there also requires agencies to be licensed in New York, and I don't think yet the Department of Health has licensed any agencies yet. So it will be a while before there's actually surrogacy going on in New York. And I think the clinics there also feel that same pinch as well. The law in California has been established for a super long time. It's been the sort of the center of the world for surrogacy for decades because of the law. I don't know if it's chicken or the egg, what came first, but there are lots of clinics, lots of agencies, and very surrogacy and intended parent friendly law in California. Just not to say that one's better, but that's just what is the fact in California. So, and there are great places all across the country as well. But as far as the surrogacy is concerned, the law that's going to affect you the most is the law of the state where the surrogate gives birth. But you want to pick a clinic that's going to be the best clinic for you, best success rates. You want to pick an agency that's there for you, so they can be wherever. But keep that in mind as well. It's easy to get confused about what law applies because you've got donor in one place, surrogate in another, agency in one place, clinic in another, lawyer in another. Don't let it get you too confused.
What the pandemic really taught us as well is that it really doesn't matter where you live. I mean, there was a time pre-COVID, the intended parents would generally have to fly into the clinic to give their sperm and do their testing. During COVID or even after, and I'm not sure how you're doing it, Dr. Norian, but we were having intended parents shipping sperm from all over the world and not having to go to clinics, right? And the same thing for the surrogates, although that's changing back now and it's better for the intended parents that the doctor does evaluate the surrogate in person. But you really don't you want to choose the best players. They don't need to be in one place, is what it is.
Great, thank you. So we have quite a lively discussion going on, and so I'm having trouble spotlighting people, so we're going to do a little bit of a Brady Bunch here.
I wanted to add about that. We are working on our licensing in New York State, but we work with, there are very few states, if any, that require licensing for surrogacy agencies. We work and have worked since our inception 17 years ago with any state where the laws are legal, and Rich is at 46 states, I think, total, but it might not be good. Not everyone's good for single. This is the legal, but doing this for 17 years, I've learned a thing or two from Rich, but Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, Connecticut. I mean, even if you're not in New York per se, which is a big state, New York City is very little. There's a lot of places around you that we still work and have worked and have surrogates and have always worked there.
Yeah.
Great. So I want to point out that our panelists have been answering questions in the Q&A, so you might want to check those out along the way. Since we were just covering legal, one of the questions that was critical for some people was, how do I know the surrogate is not going to change her mind and keep the baby?
Oh, I want to answer that, which I always say. There's two things. One, somebody that the first thing a surrogate says to herself, oh, that's a beautiful thing. I saw it on the news. Could I carry a baby for 9 months and not take it home with me? And just so you know, I bet 98% of the female population says, no, I can't do that. But the real clincher is, guess what? If she wants a baby, she has sex. She so doesn't need your baby. She's not gonna, and the stories you see on the news are always 100% have been done without an agency. They've downloaded a contract from the internet. The laws are not good in their state and will not be upheld. And Rich makes sure, because we work with him regularly, that we wouldn't do it anyway. We would never work in a state where the contract's not going to be upheld or you are not protected so that the surrogate cannot keep your baby.
Okay, great, thank you. So one question we have is, how do I know the surrogate's not going to drink or do drugs during the pregnancy? What does that look like?
I'll take that one. Oh, do you want to take that, John?
Mine was just at the initial screening, and sometimes during pregnancy, we drug screen her for, I think, 10 different factors. It's extremely rare that something comes back positive. If it does, it oftentimes is related because they may have taken a Norco because they had some back pain, but that's not during pregnancy. It's like at the pre-screening, and then they're instructed. But that's but we monitor them during our phase, and then you can take it from there.
And the OB will monitor her as well, as will we. Plus, in your contract, intended parents have the right to drug screen her at any time. I will tell you this, in the 17 years of doing this, you know, in the beginning, you don't know who this woman is. And until you meet her, you're thinking she's this like scary person who's out there who's gonna like do drugs and drink and all this stuff. I felt that way. I completely understand why any intended parent would feel that way. But as I was going to say, 17 years, the only person who has ever drug screened was my ex-husband, our surrogate, during her second journey, because he was working in an ER at the time, and all he was seeing was meth addicted, women, pregnant women. So he panicked and said, we need to get her drug tested. Got her drug tested, everything was
come
fine.
into this they do this because they love being parents, they like being pregnant, and they also really feel for people that are unable to do this without assistance. They are not looking to have a wild and crazy pregnancy and fly in under the radar. They are looking to give you a healthy baby. That is their first and their goal, and it's even more than their own pregnancy. They are hyper vigilant because they don't only answer themselves, they have to answer to you. And while there is a contract, that's not why they're doing this. They're doing it because these are the people they are, and we screen for it. The contract is there as additional protection, but it's not really the thing that keeps them in line. It's who they are as people.
Yeah.
So I add to this as well. I'm friends with a surrogate, and she's carried multiple babies, and she calls them her beans. And for the parents, the gay men who are their parents, that include her in their lives, she occasionally goes and visits them and keeps up with their life. And that's a choice of the parents. But I think that kind of shows the intent of the women who are involved in this process. And it's very much a warm thing. So I have one more question, and I want to let everyone know that you'll receive an email together from the speakers, and you're invited to talk about your personal situation and questions with them, especially the very specific ones that we haven't covered tonight, although many were answered in the Q&A area. So my last question is for everybody, and it's you're all avid LGBTQ family builders. Which experience led you to become one? Who wants to go first?
Go ahead.
I'll start. So my husband and I have twins through surrogacy and egg donation as well. And when we started the process, we had an initial consultation with a lawyer, as everyone does eventually. And I found it fascinating. I was working for a startup company in medical device technology before that, and they'd lost their funding for an in-house counsel at the time. I had a long period of time to look, and I thought, what more meaningful work could I do as a human being, as a lawyer, than to help people build families? So that's what drew me in, and I've been doing it exclusively ever since for the last 16 years.
Great, thank you.
My roommate in medical school, Jason, and I were like dear friends, and he became an emergency room physician, and just a wonderful human. And he and I would talk about it when we were back in medical school. About, he knew that I was sort of interested in the surgical fields, a little more in women's health. Taking care of guys sometimes can be a little bit unique. Gay men are far more fun to take care of because they're more focused on their health. But in general, if you had to generalize, but back in medical school, the seed was planted, and then during fellowship and in residency, it was cool. It was just something that makes me tick. Taking care of groups that don't have access to care or don't need assistance is just awesome. And then it continues to be awesome because you get all the holiday cards, all the communication, and direct messages on Instagram. It's great.
I would say for me, it really stems out of the fact that I had to go this course to have my own family. And while I'm not of that community, I have a lot of friends and some family members who are, and the fact that it has become an option for this community to have genetic children and not have to go through these like crazy other struggles of potentially adopting, you know, or having that fall out is just, it's amazing to me how much it's changed over the course of time that we've been doing it. And the families that we've created, just, you know, single men, single women, gay, straight couples, all different kinds. And that's really the most important thing for me.
It never even occurred to me not to help anybody that really wanted to have a baby. I went through it. I thought it seemed like I was going to grow up and have a baby. That was, you know, when I eventually wanted it, and it didn't happen for me. And that longing to be a parent and the fulfillment of it shouldn't be denied to anybody. And that's, doesn't matter to me who you are. It's not, and again, yes, I have friends, I have family, but it's like, if you want a baby, I want to help you because I know that strong desire is going to make you a good parent. And that's the greatest gift I can give to somebody.
I mean, I've worked with kids for a long time. I taught some lessons for years and years and years. And I actually met Dr. Norian through two dads that had a kid in Dr. Norian's class. So this industry kind of found me. I love kids. They're awesome. They're crazy. I don't have to deal with them when they're with their parents have to deal with later the rest of the day. But you know, I want my own family, and this is what my boyfriend and I will have to go through to have a kid of our own. And I mean, we have a lot of gay men friends that are older than us that have, you know, it was taboo to come out and they couldn't do that, so they married women and had kids of their own that way. So I think it's really awesome that we can do this and let men have their own babies that are biologically related to them. They don't have to go through the whole adoption process. So that's why I do what we do.
Well, I want to thank all our speakers tonight. Obviously, you shared your expertise as well as your passion. I think they are very much part of the same. And I want to thank everyone for attending. So do look for the email from our speakers. They're sending you an email together with a little bit about themselves, and you can continue the conversation with them. So once again, thanks for joining us at Out Professionals. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.